Jack, she believed she was being discreet, but she was unaware that I had learned about the situation from a colleague of hers who was appalled by the events that were unfolding. I formulated a plan and made preparations. Fortunately, I had time to manage my emotions and prepare for what was about to happen. It would all commence tonight, right after dinner. Kayla, tonight, then Mary. My friend inquired, yeah, I'm finally going to do it. I'll wait until after dinner and hand him over. Jack, Kayla, I'm aware that she thinks she's being discreet, but I've been informed by a colleague of hers who was appalled by the situation that she's actually been informed. I've made my plans and am getting ready. Fortunately, I have time to manage the anger and prepare for what's about to happen. It will all begin tonight, right after dinner. Kayla, tonight, then Mary. My friend inquired, yeah, I'm finally going to do it. I'll wait until after dinner, hand him a beer, and then I'll fill you in on what happens. I replied, just remember to stay strong. He won't like it, but you have to remain firm. I'll keep that in mind, just as we discussed. He doesn't have a choice. This is how it's going to be, and if he truly loves me, he'll let me do this for my happiness. That's right, just be prepared for him to yell and scream. He'll resist, but eventually. I'll have a beer and then I'll explain the situation. Please remember to maintain your composure. He won't be pleased, but you must remain resolute. I'll keep that in mind, as we discussed. He doesn't have a choice. This is the plan, and if he truly loves me, he'll allow me to do this for my own happiness. Expect him to become enraged. He'll resist, but eventually, he'll come to his senses and accept the new reality. It's essential that you stay calm but assertive. Allow him to have his outburst, and then he'll realize that you're in charge. That's right. Besides, as far as he knows, this will only be temporary. Once he accepts it, he'll start to enjoy it, and then it'll just continue. Are you certain about all this, Jack? He can be very obstinate. Look, Kayla. Jack loves you more than anything in the world, right? It is imperative that you maintain composure, yet be assertive. Allow him to express his emotions, and subsequently, he will acknowledge your authority. This approach is effective because, as he becomes acclimated, he will recognize the extent of his devotion to you and the extent to which he is willing to go to ensure your contentment. Kayla, Jack's love for you is unquestionable. While he may become upset, when he composes himself, he will recognize the depth of his affection and the sacrifices he is willing to make for your happiness. I believe you possess the necessary expertise in this matter. I have made mistakes in my past 2 marriages, but I have refined my approach to perfection in my 3rd marriage. You have met my current husband. He is completely under my control, even remaining by my side when I am with someone else. I also occasionally he will become upset, but when he composes himself, he will recognize his love for you and be willing to do anything to make you happy. I believe you're the expert on this matter. I made 2 marriages mistakes, but I perfected the method on my 3rd marriage. You've met my current husband. He is now completely under my control. He even stands next to the bed when I'm with someone else. I also sometimes have him clean up afterward. In a month, another Jack will be in line as well. Then, you can be assured of the security of your marriage to Jack, as well as the pleasure of several other men. I finished the day and went home to cook Jack's favorite dinner. When Jack came home, he greeted me with the words, "I love you," and kissed me on the cheek, as usual. Despite my best efforts, I was still nervous. This was going to be a significant step and change in our marriage, but after completing the day's tasks, I returned home to prepare Jack's preferred meal. Upon his arrival, he greeted me with an affectionate expression and a kiss on the cheek, as was customary. Despite my apprehensions, I acknowledged the significance of this step and the imminent changes to our marriage. However, I was confident that it was a worthwhile endeavor. Mary had been sharing insights about her feminine marriage ministry with me for some time. I had observed its positive impact on her and her husband. He expressed contentment with the state of their marriage. I was certain that Jack would find it beneficial as well. The dinner conversation was enjoyable, and we shared anecdotes from our days and discussed current events. It was a relaxed dinner for us. Following dinner, I suggested that Jack relax with a beer while I tidied up. After a period of time, Jack was ready to relax. I assured him that it would not take long and that I could handle it on my own. I had already stored the leftovers, put the dishes in the dishwasher, and poured myself a glass of wine. I was mentally prepared and headed into the living room for the conversation. "Jack, honey, we need to talk." "Sure, honey, about what?" "Okay, Jack. I realize this might be difficult for you to accept right now, but it's something I really need to do. Please keep in mind." I expressed some reluctance, but he assured me it was nothing too serious and that I should be able to handle it. We had stored the leftovers, the dishes had been put in the dishwasher, and it was time for me to pour myself a glass of wine. I mentally prepared myself and headed into the living room for the conversation. "Jack, honey, we need to talk." "Sure, honey, about what?" "Okay, Jack, I realize this might be difficult for you to accept right now, but it's something I really need to do. Please keep in mind that this is only temporary. So, what do you need if it's that crucial to your happiness?" "Of course, I'll do what I can." So far, he had handled it well. He didn't even seem bothered. That's good. We've discussed having kids, and I'm almost ready for that. But there are a couple of other things I need to do first. It should take a couple of months, at most, then we can start working on having kids. That's great, baby. So, what are those things? I understand that this is only temporary, and I'm committed to working with you to clarify what is required. I've discussed the matter with Jack, and he has expressed his understanding. We have decided that I will take some time to explore before making a final decision. This will be a temporary arrangement, and once it is completed, I will be able to focus fully on my role as a wife and mother. I understand that this may be a challenging adjustment for you, but I am confident that we can work through it successfully. I'm surprised that Jack is handling this with such composure. I had anticipated a more intense reaction. For the time being, I will be seeing other men. This will allow us to maintain our physical relationship while we work through these changes. Kayla, I'm going to explore a bit before settling down completely. It will be temporary, and then I can be the best wife and mother to our children. You could dream of that, all right? That sounds reasonable. So far, so good. But how are you planning to go about it? Wow, he's handling it well. I expected him to freak out. I'll be seeing other men for a while, but I'll also have love making with other guys to clear my head. Remember, it's only love making with them. You are the only one with my love. I'll return to you in a couple of months, be your faithful wife again, and then we can start working on having the kids we've planned. Well, Kayla, you don't seem to be asking for my permission, so I assume you've made up your mind. I'd like to go on record. I am not in favor of this, Kayla. If you are asking for my permission, I am not giving it. However, you are a grown woman, and I will not stop you if you think it is necessary. Things were going better than I imagined. He did not raise his voice, but spoke in a conversational tone. Mary must be right. Jack will accept the new role I am preparing him for. So, Kayla, how will this work? Are you moving out, or do you expect me to? Are you bringing? I'm not in favor of this, but I understand your reasons. If you're interested in pursuing this, I'm not going to stop you. Things were going better than I imagined. He didn't raise his voice, but spoke in a calm tone. Mary must be right. Jack will accept the new role I'm preparing him for. So, Kayla, how will this work? Are you moving out, or do you expect me to? Are you bringing them here, or to their place, or a hotel? Well, we're both going to keep living here. We're married, and as I said, we'll keep making love. The other guys will just be making love with you. It will be making love. I may go to them, or bring them here. In those cases, you'll have to sleep in the spare bedroom. I don't see the need for a hotel room, since we could just stay here again. I'm not in favor of that. We can arrange to meet at my place, at a hotel, or here. We're both going to keep living here. We're married, and as I said, we'll continue to engage in intimate relations. The other individuals will just be engaging in intimate relations with you. It will be making love. I may visit them or bring them here. In those cases, you'll have to sleep in the spare bedroom. I don't see the need for a hotel room, since we could just stay here again. I'm not in favor of that. However, we shouldn't engage in intimate relations during this period. I won't risk catching any sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, once you're done. We'll wait until you're tested and cleared. Have fun, don't worry about me. Well, Jack can't say I'm not disappointed. I love you and enjoy our intimate relations, but I understand your concern. I'll just have to live with it. That's great, honey. So, when do you plan to start your little flings? Well, Mary and I decided we should refrain from intimate relations during this period. I will abstain from any risk of contracting STDs. Once you have completed the necessary testing and received clearance, we will proceed. Enjoy yourself, and do not concern yourself with my well-being. Jack, I must admit to some disappointment. I do love you and find pleasure in our physical intimacy. However, I understand your concerns. I will simply have to accept the situation. Mary and I have decided to visit a club and meet a couple of colleagues from work tomorrow evening. I am uncertain if this will materialize, but I may bring one of them back for the night, since you will not be engaging in intimate relations with me during this period. It may be preferable for you to relocate to a spare room for the next couple of months. Kayla, do not worry about it. I will ensure that the move is completed by the time you return. I have a social engagement at a club tomorrow night, where I am expected to meet 2 colleagues from work. I am uncertain if I will be able to attend, but I may invite one of them to stay with me overnight. It might be preferable for you to find another room for the next couple of months. Jack said as he resumed reading the newspaper. I was impressed by how mature he was regarding the situation. He expressed some reluctance and declined to engage in physical intimacy, but he was completely accepting of the situation. Mary was right. In 2 months, Jack would be under my control. Besides, I knew this period of physical intimacy was only temporary. Within a week or 2, he would be back in my bed. At that point, I would simply use the venerable Jack said he would be home tomorrow night. I was impressed by how mature he was about the situation. He did express some reluctance and refused to engage in intimate activities, but he was overall accepting of the situation. Mary was right, in 2 months, Jack would be under my control. Besides, I knew this period of reluctance would soon end. Within a week or 2, he would be back in my bed. Then, I would use the wrench to fully embrace his new role as my submissive husband. Update: Hello, Mary. It's Kayla. How was your day? Oh my God, you wouldn't believe how mature Jack was. I expected him to become enraged, but he remained calm and accepting. Wow, that's great. I told you he would comply. Do you think you could? Dear Wrench, I am reaching out to inform you that Jack has made significant progress in embracing his new role as my submissive husband. He has shown remarkable maturity and acceptance throughout the process, which was unexpected. I am confident that he will comply with the requested changes. However, I am hesitant to suggest that he watch tonight, as he has expressed reluctance to do so. He has also mentioned that he would not engage in lemming with me while I am with someone else. I anticipate that this will change in the near future, as he will become more familiar with the situation. It is possible that this could lead to enjoyable activities, as he has shown reluctance to touch me. I have taken the initiative to move him into the designated space. He is currently packing his belongings in the spare room and has assured me that he will relocate to another room before my return this evening. That I find it amusing that you have renamed the master bedroom to the owner's bedroom. I am considering making a similar adjustment. That in any case, I should begin preparing as well. I will meet you at the club, all right. Farewell. That night, Jack had made significant progress in boxing up the items from my bedroom. Jack has been packing his belongings for the spare room. He has assured me that he will vacate the owner's bedroom before my return this evening. I find it amusing that you have renamed the master bedroom as the owner's bedroom. I will have to consider doing the same. I should get ready. I will meet you at the club. Bye for now. That night, Jack had made significant progress in packing the items from my bedroom. I am uncertain why he opted to pack when he could simply carry items in large quantities down the hall. However, he explained that this method would involve less walking, and he could sort through everything and leave the items he didn't need in boxes to dispose of. I suppose that made sense, but I was too preoccupied with getting ready to pay attention. He did mention how appealing I looked in my underwear, garter belt, stockings, and 5-inch heels. I was uncertain why he insisted on packing, given that he could simply carry numerous items down the hall. However, he explained that this approach would minimize walking, and that he could review the contents and discard items he deemed unnecessary, storing them in boxes for disposal. While this seemed reasonable, I was preoccupied with getting ready, and failed to pay attention. He did comment on my appearance, noting how well I looked in my underwear, garter belt, stockings, and 5-inch loafers. He remained silent when I wore the little red cocktail dress I had purchased for our 5th anniversary last year. In fact, that was the only time I had worn it, and I looked very appealing in it. I informed Jack that I was going out and expected to return around 1 a.m. I mentioned that he didn't need to wait for me, as I might not be alone. After saying this, I picked up my clutch and prepared to leave. He assured me not to worry, mentioning he made no comment when I wore the red cocktail dress I purchased for our 5th anniversary last year. In fact, that was the only time I wore it, but I looked very good in it. I informed Jack that I was going out and expected to return around 1 a.m. I mentioned that he didn't need to wait for me, as I might not be alone. After saying this, I picked up my clutch and prepared to leave. He assured me not to worry, mentioning that he would have moved out by the time I returned. As he made this promise, he closed the last box. As I left the house, I felt uneasy, but I couldn't identify the source of my discomfort. Despite this, I chose to dismiss it, directing my focus towards the anticipated fun and excitement of the night at the club. I encountered Mary, Larry, and Josh, the account managers known for their attractiveness and reputed endowment, according to Mary and some of the other office girls. While Jack was considered to have only a modest endowment, the prospect of encountering a significantly larger member was a source of intrigue, compounded by the awareness that they were well-versed in leveraging their physical attributes. During the course of conversation, Mary inquired about Jack's transition to the spare bedroom. Upon receiving our initial order, I confirmed that he had completed packing and assured her that he would be fully relocated by the time I returned. Upon sharing this update, Josh inquired about Jack's alleged statement. I confirmed this, recalling Jack's remarks when Jack had a certain degree of endowment, and the prospect of encountering a significantly larger member was a source of intrigue, accompanied by the expectation that they possessed the knowledge and expertise to utilize their assets effectively. In the midst of conversation, Mary inquired about Jack's relocation to the spare bedroom. Upon the delivery of our first order, I confirmed that he had completed packing and assured me of his complete relocation by the time I returned. Upon sharing this information, Josh inquired about Jack's statement. I confirmed this, recalling Jack's words when I mentioned my expected return time. Our group erupted in laughter at the remark, and Larry humorously expressed his disappointment about Jack's relocation, as he had been hoping to involve him in carnal activities. I playfully suggested that perhaps, after some persuasion, we could consider such arrangements. Amidst the conversation, I observed that neither Larry nor Josh had extended an invitation to dance. Over the course of several hours, we engaged in dancing and indulged in beverages. I danced with both of them on multiple occasions. We shared a light-hearted moment, and then Larry expressed his surprise at Jack's absence, noting his hope to involve him in some intimate activities. I playfully suggested that, after a bit of encouragement, we might consider exploring such arrangements. During the course of the evening, I danced with both Larry and Josh on several occasions, particularly during slow songs where we embraced closely, feeling their physical presence. Throughout the night, their hands remained on my back. After a while, Mary and I took a break and went to the ladies' room to discuss the conclusion of the night. We decided the outcome of the ride home through 3 rounds of rock, paper, scissors, resulting in me driving, Josh and Mary accompanying Larry. Upon arriving at the house, I led Josh through the front door, noticing that it was dark inside. I assumed Jack had retired to bed by then. During slow songs, we embraced closely, and I felt their hardness against me throughout the night. Their hands remained on my backside. Later, Mary and I took a break and went to the ladies' room to discuss the conclusion of the night. We decided the outcome of the ride home through 3 rounds of rock, paper, scissors, resulting in me driving, Josh and Mary accompanying Larry. Upon arriving at the house, I led Josh through the front door. I noticed that it was dark inside, and I assumed Jack had retired to bed by then. Reassuring myself that everything was in order anyway, we didn't need him watching, I led Josh down the hall to my room. Of course, all of Jack's stuff was gone. Maybe I should reward him by offering him a hand job. There would be something to think about later. Right now, I had other things requiring my attention. It didn't take us long to undress. Josh wanted me to keep the Gerber belt and stockings on. I'd lost my thong a couple of times. I proceeded to reassure myself that everything was in order and that it wasn't necessary for him to be present. I led Josh down the hall to my room. I noticed that all of Jack's belongings were missing. I considered the possibility of rewarding him by offering him a hand job. I decided that I would consider this option later. At that moment, I had other things that required my attention. We didn't take long to undress. Josh wanted me to keep the garter belt and stockings on. I had lost my thong a couple of hours ago, and I was unsure if it was Larry's or Josh's. It didn't matter. I had enough money to buy others. The next 2 hours were sheer bliss. We started with the first position, then switched to another one to avoid exhaustion. We finished that round with the cowgirl position. After a brief rest, I enjoyed when he spanked my ass while I rode him. I might allow Jack to do it on his birthday or our anniversary, but it wouldn't happen again. I am uncertain whether it was Larry's or Josh's, but I was not concerned with that distinction. I had earned sufficient funds to purchase others. The subsequent 2 hours were characterized by pure bliss. We commenced with one position, then transitioned to another to avoid exhausting ourselves too rapidly. We concluded that round with cowgirl. Following a brief respite, I engaged in a session with him that included spanking my ass while I rode him. It is possible that I will allow Jack to do so on his birthday or anniversary, but I anticipate that it will not occur again. I intend to reserve it for my other partners. We proceeded to shower before retiring for the night and again upon awakening the following morning. Subsequently, Josh had to depart for his wife and children, so I donned my robe and procured coffee. I experienced a slight sense of disappointment that Jack had not yet brewed coffee, considering that it was already past 9 o'clock. Typically, he would be up for an hour by now. I intend to address this issue with him at a later time. I mean, would it be detrimental? I decided to save it for my other partners. We had a shower before going to bed and again when we woke up the next morning. After that, Josh had to leave for his wife and children, so I put on my robe and went to get some coffee. I felt a bit let down that Jack hadn't brewed coffee yet, considering it was already past 9 o'clock. Typically, he'd be up for an hour by now. I planned to address it with him later. I mean, would it hurt him to make me coffee and breakfast, especially after I stayed up late? For the handiwork I was going to offer him as a reward for moving into the spare bedroom while I was away, I devoured my breakfast bagel. I headed to the shower and got dressed. The warm water did wonders for soothing my sore muscles. Since I had no plans for the day, I opted for my old shorts and a t-shirt, as I was only going to be around Jack. I asked him to make me coffee and breakfast, especially since I had stayed up late. I was planning to offer him compensation for moving into the spare bedroom while I was away. After eating my breakfast bagel, I headed to the shower and got dressed. The warm water helped to soothe my sore muscles. Since I had no plans for the day, I wore my old shorts and a t-shirt, as I was only going to be around Jack. I wore a functional bra and an old pair of regular underwear. Just as I finished tying my hair into a ponytail, the phone rang. It was Mary. "Hey, girlfriend. It was so nice to hear from you. How was Josh last night?" "He was amazing, just as I thought he would be." "Speaking of Jack, what was his reaction this morning?" "I don't know. I'm a little angry because he seems to be asleep. I was disappointed that he didn't make me breakfast and coffee this morning." I was in the midst of tying my hair into a ponytail when the phone rang. It was Mary. "Hey, girlfriend. So, how was Josh last night?" she asked. "He was amazing. Exactly as I thought it would be." "Speaking of Jack, what was his reaction this morning?" "I'm not sure. I'm a little angry because he seems to be asleep. I was disappointed that he didn't make me breakfast and coffee this morning. I was thinking of offering him a part-time job for being moved to the spare room, but now I don't think so." "Yes, make sure he knows how disappointed you are and what you expect from this moment. Continue to be aggressive with him, but make sure you give him small rewards when he does something good. This will give him incentive to try harder." I'm actually starting to get angry that he still hasn't gotten up. Wait a minute while I get his lazy ass out of bed. I walked out of the bedroom. I was considering offering him a part-time position for moving to the spare room, but I have decided against it. It is essential to express your disappointment and set clear expectations. Continue to be assertive with him, but also offer small rewards for positive behavior. This will encourage him to strive harder. I am growing increasingly frustrated that he still hasn't gotten up. I walked down the hall to the spare bedroom and pounded on the door, shouting his name. There was no response. I tried again, still no answer. Finally, I turned the knob and opened the door. "Oh, crap!" I exclaimed. "What's wrong?" Mary asked on the phone. "Jack isn't in the spare bedroom, and his clothes aren't in the closet." "Wait," I said, running through the house. "His truck is gone, as are all his tools." That little stirring in the back of my head was starting to take shape. "Oh no." I inhaled sharply and said, "What is it? What's going on?" Mary inquired. "Jack's moved out." "I understand. What did he say?" "He didn't mention moving his things into the spare room. He only said he would move his things out of my room. Then he said he would move in before I returned. I thought he meant he would move out of my room, but he meant he would move out of the whole house. I need to call him and find out where he's gone." "No, this is wrong. This could be perceived as a sign of weakness, so it's crucial to maintain composure and not respond. Instead, you should trust that, in time, he will come back to you. This development presents an opportunity to establish boundaries and set conditions for his return. In the meantime, it's essential to avoid contact with him." This message conveys a sense of vulnerability, suggesting that you should maintain your composure and refrain from making contact with him. Instead, allow him to initiate communication with you. Trust me when I say that in the near future, he will likely seek your forgiveness. This development presents a favorable opportunity to establish a new routine. You now have a reason to withhold access and require him to beg for your attention. This will accelerate the process. I would even suggest allowing Josh or Larry to engage in physical intimacy with you, which would result in Jack taking on the role of child-rearing. Are you certain about this course of action? I am confident in the efficacy of my approach. I must admit, you have been right about this up to this point. Of course, I am. Oh, and Larry has requested a meeting with you in the supply closet at work on Monday for an hour. Can we truly expect to get away with this? It's so widespread that it's almost accepted. I have to do it on a schedule. I'll email you the meeting time, so just note it down. Raising the baby is a decision I'm sure you've carefully considered. I must admit, you've been right so far. Of course, I am. Oh, and Larry wants to meet you in the supply closet at work for an hour on Monday. Can we really get away with that? At least half the girls are doing it. It's so bad, I have to do it on a schedule. I'll email you the meeting time. Just put it down as an appointment somewhere else. Don't worry about it. The boss never goes there, and everyone who needs something there knows to ask me before going to get it. We continued our conversation for a bit longer before ending the call. I must confess, I felt a bit uneasy about Jack's move. Despite my actions, I genuinely love him and envision spending my life with him. Mary's portrayal of a feminine lifestyle sounded appealing, offering me the opportunity to explore various men. Eventually, I planned to give I was able to attend to my business commitments and did not concern myself with the matter. The boss never goes there, and those who require his assistance are aware of the protocol for requesting his attention. We continued our conversation for a bit longer before concluding the call. I must admit that I felt a bit uneasy about Jack's decision, despite my feelings for him. I genuinely love him and envision a life with him. Mary's portrayal of a feminine lifestyle sounded appealing, offering me the opportunity to explore various relationships. Eventually, I plan to end other relationships, but Jack will remain my devoted and submissive spouse. Perhaps in a few years, I can negotiate with Jack to allow me to tie him down in exchange for ceasing involvement with other men. Of course, this will only happen when I'm ready to give it up, and he doesn't need to know that. I could use binding as a condition for his return. I'd need to consider that regardless. I needed to recover from the previous night and brace myself for. I'm considering binding as a condition for Jack's return, but I need to recover from the previous night and prepare for a demanding day at work tomorrow. I'm going to shrug it off, prepare a simple dinner, enjoy a glass of wine, and go to bed. Throughout the week, there was no word from Jack. Mary assured me it wasn't entirely unexpected and predicted he would contact me soon. The longer he stayed away, the more conditions I could establish for his return. This week, I'd been meeting Larry, Josh, and a couple of other attractive guys in the pantry every day. A double-team session with Larry and Josh is scheduled for later this week. I had a demanding day at work tomorrow. I shrugged it off, prepared a simple dinner, enjoyed a glass of wine, and went to bed. Throughout the week, there was no word from Jack. Mary assured me it wasn't entirely unexpected and predicted he would contact me soon. The longer he stayed away, the more conditions I could establish for his return. This week, I'd been meeting Larry, Josh, and a couple of other attractive guys in the pantry every day. I had a double-team session with Larry and Josh scheduled for that afternoon. On Friday morning, during our break around the coffee machine, Larry, Josh, Mary, and I engaged in conversation. Suddenly, a professionally dressed woman approached and inquired if we were Kayla Adams, Mary Morgan, Josh Johnson, and Larry Jones. After introducing ourselves, she handed each of us an envelope and quickly took pictures with a small digital camera. She mentioned that we had all been served and then headed towards our boss's office. I called after her, asking what it was about, and she responded in a sweet southern voice. This afternoon, on Friday, while we were having a conversation around the coffee machine, a professional-looking woman approached us and asked if we were Kayla Adams, Mary Morgan, Josh Johnson, and Larry Jones. After we introduced ourselves, she gave each of us an envelope and took pictures with a small digital camera. She mentioned that we had all been served and then headed towards our boss's office. I called after her, asking what it was about, and she responded in a sweet southern voice that she was paid to distribute them as a joke and not to read them. She entered the boss's office without knocking. Less than a minute later, she cheerfully left the building, wishing us a good day. Simultaneously, we opened our envelopes, discovering divorce papers citing spousal cheating as the reason. I was frozen in shock. Josh and Larry's phones rang shortly after their wives, who had received proof of their infidelity. Their belongings were about to be tossed out, and they were to take turns sleeping. The company was facing a lawsuit for alleged moral misconduct, as outlined in the employee handbook. The source of this legal action was Mrs. Adams, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Johnson. The lawsuit was related to allegations of inappropriate conduct against these individuals. The envelopes were addressed to Mrs. Morgan. The envelopes were opened in the boss's office without knocking. Less than a minute later, the envelopes were left. The envelopes contained divorce papers citing spousal cheating as the reason. The phones of Josh and Larry rang shortly after their wives received proof of their infidelity. Their belongings were about to be discarded, and they were to take turns sleeping. Divorce papers were imminent. The boss's voice boomed from the office. He expressed frustration. He suddenly appeared in the doorway. He yelled loudly enough for the entire office to hear. He called for Adams, Morgan, Johnson, and Jones to come into his office immediately. A sense of fear settled over me as we walked past him with bowed heads and entered his office. The door slamming behind us once inside, we were met with the boss's discontent. He emphasized that the situation was beyond just bad. He demanded an explanation while waving. The imminent arrival of divorce papers was made known by our superior's voice, which boomed from the office. He suddenly appeared in the doorway, yelling loudly enough for the entire office to hear. He called for Adams, Morgan, Johnson, and Jones to come into his office immediately. A sense of fear settled over me as we walked past him with bowed heads and entered his office. The door slamming behind us once inside, he conveyed his discontent, emphasizing that the situation was beyond just bad. He demanded an explanation while waving a manila envelope. However, none of us dared to speak. He proceeded to inform us that the company was facing a lawsuit for not adhering to the moral code outlined in our employee handbook. He questioned whether any of us could fathom the reason behind such legal action. Once again, we found ourselves unable to respond. He took it upon himself to explain the situation, stating that the lawsuit revolved around allegations against Mrs. Adams, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Johnson for inappropriate conduct while Mrs. Jones Morgan was accused. The manila envelope contained a statement from the company's legal counsel regarding a lawsuit filed against the company for alleged moral code violations. The company's conduct, as outlined in the handbook, was called into question, and the legal basis for the lawsuit was explained. The lawsuit specifically concerned Mrs. Adams, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Johnson, and Mrs. Jones Morgan, and alleged that Mrs. Jones Morgan had converted a storage room into a company brothel. The company's counsel challenged us to deny these allegations and questioned if any of these incidents occurred during business hours or on company property. We did not respond. The company's counsel expressed frustration and criticized our actions, stating that the court order prevented him from firing us until the case was settled. He instructed us to leave his office until he figured out how to handle the situation. We left his office and made our way to our room. Following that incident, my job became. The situation with the storage room was challenging, but I was grateful to still have employment. I discovered the severity of the divorce papers, which contained images, videos, audio recordings, and even notorious letters. An hour later, a company-wide email arrived from the boss, addressing all employees. Management had become aware that employees had repeatedly planned and executed actions contrary to the moral code of conduct detailed in the employee handbook during work hours and on company property. Considering the likelihood of the problem being more widespread than documented, drastic action was announced due to uncertainty about which employees were involved. All employees were required to familiarize themselves with the code of morals in the employee handbook. An online class would be developed over the weekend and must be completed successfully by all employees by the following Friday. Security would conduct spot checks of all secluded areas throughout the day, a measure to be repeated until permanent security cameras were installed for monitoring. Subsequently, the storage room would be locked, and the key would be held by the security supervisor. Any necessary supplies must be brought in with a security escort. The security supervisor would closely monitor computers. The personal use of company assets is strictly prohibited. Such activities include scheduling non-work-related meetings with colleagues or others, browsing non-work-related websites, and using non-work-related text messaging on company computers. Socializing with colleagues should be confined to the break room during scheduled ed breaks and lunch periods. Security personnel would roam the building to monitor compliance, and the names of those responsible for the actions would not be disclosed. 2 minutes later, my email inbox received numerous negative messages from colleagues. After work, the other three and I met at a bar across the street and sat at a small table in the corner. We received disapproving looks from other colleagues during Friday happy hour. At least we still have work to do, at least for the time being. That was very considerate of him. Why do you think, Jack? I inquired about including that in the court order, and Josh dismissed it, suggesting that Jack wasn't trying to cause minimal damage but rather intended to inflict more pain. I sought clarification, and Josh explained the reference to alimony. He stated that while infidelity currently constitutes the primary reason for the dissolution of the marriage, maintaining a stable job and income could prevent a judge from awarding alimony. He cautioned against the risk of not finding another job if laid off and the potential for convincing a sympathetic judge to provide financial assistance. The recommendation was to remain at the job until the divorce was finalized. Larry raised a scenario in which, if all four of us were laid off, there could be no alimony and no job. Josh responded that, in such a case, he would resign. On Monday, Larry made a light-hearted comment about his natural blonde hair, implying that resigning voluntarily could have legal ramifications. He explained that resigning after filing for divorce might be perceived as an attempt to receive support from the ex-spouse and could lead to unfavorable rulings from the judge. The recommended course of action was to maintain employment and conserve financial resources. Josh expressed concern about his and my situation, emphasizing that their wives might receive alimony and child support due to having children. He pondered the challenges they might face. I would face if laid off. Considering that alimony and child support were determined based on income at the time of the divorce, the situation did not look promising. Realizing the potential consequences, I felt the need to talk to Jack and attempt to resolve our issues. Despite wanting to assist my friend, the thought of losing my husband made me reconsider my priorities. In a moment of self-reflection, I questioned my initial intentions and concluded that if I needed to prioritize my marriage over my friendships, I would do whatever it took to save it. I swiftly retrieved my cell phone and encountered a message stating that the number I dialed did not accept calls from my number. I requested Mary's phone, explaining that Jack had blocked my number and that I needed to discuss the storm issue with him. After attempting to call him on Mary's phone and receiving the same message, it became evident that he had also blocked her number. When I suggested trying Larry's phone, I hesitated, expressing concern about the potential consequences of calling my husband from one of my friends. Jack's failure to respond to phone calls from my end indicated that he had likely blocked my phone number. Given the possibility that he had done so for both my home and work phones, I felt a sense of urgency. Recognizing that talking on the phone might not be effective, I decided to seek him out in person. My priority was to address the situation face to face, regardless of any societal expectations for women in marriage. Reflecting on the changes in my perspective, I recognized that just that morning, I had entertained thoughts of making Jack beg and plead to come home. Now, however, the situation had changed. And I was unsure of our roles in resolving the issue. I checked my contacts, and as I expected, at least one of his friends knew where I could find him. Spoiler: none of our mutual friends had any information. Well, that wasn't exactly true. None of the previous mutual friends who remained friends with me had any information. The numerous mutual friends who now disliked me knew enough. Unfortunately, while they had no objections about letting me know they knew where I was unable to locate him, and they declined to share that information with me. When I inquired if they would pass along a message, I was met with laughter. I had just concluded my fourth call and fourth drink, and Josh's sarcasm was evident. Perhaps it was just my mood or the difference between how a woman and a man thinks. Some may consider what Josh suggested to be brilliant. Josh began, "I believe that's a valid point. Given the challenges we face in our personal lives, it might be worthwhile to consider spending the evening with Kayla. We've already engaged in a physical relationship, so it could be advantageous to take advantage of that and enjoy a night of passion." While this may seem logical to him, I believe there's a more practical approach to consider. If there's no significant risk involved, it might be worthwhile to explore this option. Personally, I believe there's still a small possibility that Jack and I could have a future together. There was a slim possibility that the situation would change quickly. If I brought everyone back to my house for a late-night gathering, it would have been counterproductive. I respectfully declined and offered to arrange for Mary to take them home. I was working on getting back with my husband. I tried everything to find Jack on weekends. I drove around motel parking lots for hours looking for his truck. I drove past all his friends' houses at different times to see if his truck was there. I even tried to follow his best friend. Colleague, when I saw him leaving his residence, I hoped he would go to Jack's location, but my hopes were in vain. On Monday morning, I camped across the street from his place of employment. Everyone came in, but Jack never arrived. I waited another hour, but to no avail. I was already late for work, but I didn't care. I didn't think they would fire me right then, and I would still be fired after the settlement, but that didn't matter. I got out of the car and headed for the office. I noticed that Jack's office door was closed, so I inquired with the receptionist about his whereabouts. She informed me that he was out for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, when I arrived 2 hours late, my boss gave me an angry look. I was not concerned about the numerous phones I could have used, as they were all blocked. His friends declined to assist me. I am unable to reach him at work, and I have no idea where he is. I cannot simply go to his office. Is he receiving mail? Unfortunately, that is not a viable option at this time because I am unaware of the correct address to which I should send it. What options do I have? Should I send him an email? He is known to check his email regularly, so I am hopeful that he will not block my email. I am not concerned about attempting to contact him. I will not be making excuses. I do not wish to expend any more time trying to provide one. I have been diagnosed with the fool's disease. I am responsible for my decision, and I am not blaming Mary. It was a pleasure hearing her discuss women's marriage. I am unsure why I thought there was a chance that you would accept. I should have known better. I apologize for needing a wake-up call. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere regret for my actions and the subsequent impact they have had on you. I understand that you may not be able to accept this, Jack, but I want you to know that I am deeply embarrassed. I understand that I have made mistakes, and I am willing to take responsibility for them. I am ready to move forward and to do whatever it takes to regain your trust. I realize that I was misguided in my attempts to create FM, and I am committed to learning from these mistakes and working collaboratively with you. Jack, I'm giving you my undivided attention. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get back to where I belong with you. I know the definition of anything. I'm offering you anything, despite no interest in women. I do things for you, serve you, and my friends at a Super Bowl party in only a garter belt, stockings, and high heels if it brings me back to you. If you want me in a certain way, tell me to bend over. I am willing to submit to any form of discipline, however extreme it may be, in order to be with you. I am offering you my complete submissiveness, even to the point of bending over the nearest chair in front of others, if that is what it takes to be with you. I am willing to submit to any form of discipline, however extreme it may be, in order to be with you. I am offering you my complete submissiveness, even to the point of bending over the nearest chair in front of others, if that is what it takes to be with you. Regardless of the circumstances, I will deliver a stern reprimand to my cheek with a leather belt. I understand that this may not be to your liking, but I will comply. I will wear a chastity belt and provide you with the keys as a condition for my return. If blood is drawn for an STD test, the results will be provided in a couple of days. Please inform me of the address to which they should be sent, and I will ensure they are delivered. Regardless of the situation, I acknowledge that you would never intentionally inflict harm upon me, even though I might deserve it. I accept this. I am not requesting that you forget or trust me again. I am asking for the opportunity to be yours in any capacity you desire. I request nothing more than to be with you forever, even if it means agreeing to a divorce or witnessing you with other women. I pray that it does not happen, but I realize it is not my decision. I acknowledge that I am at fault and I understand that you may have concerns regarding the goose-goosey and other related issues. With regard to Mary, Larry, Josh, and the lawsuit against my company, Mary influenced me to agree to this plan. Josh and Larry took advantage of that, as you are aware. I will be terminated once the lawsuit is settled. The responsibility for these actions lies with us. I am willing to assist in the resolution, as I am your dedicated associate moving forward. Kayla, update. Fortunately, Jack hasn't blocked my email yet, which is surprising. He has read it, and I'm aware that he has a different perspective on the situation. I understand that I've made a significant personal decision, and I'm committed to upholding it. I'm willing to demonstrate this through actions and interactions. Jack has not blocked my email, and even more surprising, he has read it. He has not taken my word for it. I had already broken the biggest vow I had ever made, the vow about leaving everyone else behind. Since I had broken that promise, what could make him think I would not break any other promises? I could only prove it to him, one action at a time. 2 years had passed since I sent that letter. Josh and Larry faced challenges in their divorces, and all 4 of us were terminated the day after the lawsuit against the company was settled. Eventually, Josh and Larry found lower-paying jobs and moved into a small apartment in a rough neighborhood. Their social lives suffered, and their ex-wives turned the kids against them. I realized both women are now in better relationships. Now it's my turn. Currently, I'm kneeling, undressed, beside the bed, wearing a chastity belt. Josh and Larry faced challenges in their divorces, and all 4 of us were terminated the day after the lawsuit against the company was settled. Eventually, Josh and Larry found lower-paying jobs and moved into a small apartment in a challenging neighborhood. Their social lives suffered, and their ex-wives turned the kids against them. I realized both women are now in better relationships. Now it's my turn. Currently, I'm kneeling undressed beside the bed, wearing a chastity belt. While Jack finishes this, it is my penance. I detailed all of this in a letter. Yes, Jack wanted to test me to see if I would honor those words. If I want him back, I don't have much choice. It was a tough 6 months, but eventually, he eased up a bit. He still makes me do it sometimes, like now, but it's improved. Now he only brings other women home once every 2 months. After getting fired, I stopped working. Jack got a promotion, and while Jack was occupied with other matters, I took the opportunity to detail the events that had transpired in a written communication. Jack sought to assess my commitment to the terms of our agreement by observing my conduct. During the 6-month period, I endured significant hardship. However, Jack eventually demonstrated a willingness to compromise, albeit maintaining a certain degree of control over my personal life. At present, he has relinquished his expectation that I engage in the aforementioned activities, though he does occasionally request my participation. I am currently unemployed, as I have chosen to dedicate my time to raising our 2-year-old twins. I generally dress in a manner that reflects my role as a stay-at-home mother. However, Jack has recently suggested that I begin to wear clothing in the comfort of our home. The children are reaching an age where I feel compelled to dress them, and I do so when we have visitors. I continue to answer the door in a state of undress for deliveries. I have undergone laser hair removal, resulting in the permanent removal of my pubic hair. I am able to manage without my income. I am a stay-at-home mother to our 2-year-old twins. I am usually dressed, but Jack has recently suggested that I begin wearing clothes at home. The children are growing older, and it feels unusual to not do so. Currently, I only wear clothes when leaving the house or when we have guests. I still answer the door undressed for deliveries. I underwent laser hair removal, which has left a permanent landing strip over my genitals. This makes it impossible to hide my Jack tattoo on the right side of the band and Jack tattoo on the left side. Every week, Jack updates the 5 red stripes on my buttocks with a leather strap. Right after the 5th stroke, he removes my plug and engages me back. As I lean over the couch, I am not always perfect. Sometimes there are more stripes on my buttocks or chest when I mess up, but I genuinely enjoy it. Who knew the sting of? It is evident that concealing my Jack tattoo on the right side of the band and the Jack tattoo on the left side is not feasible. On a weekly basis, Jack updates the 5 red stripes on my buttocks with a leather strap. Subsequent to the 5th stroke, he removes my plug and engages me. Occasionally, I lean over the couch, and there are more stripes on my buttocks or chest. However, I genuinely enjoy it. I was unaware that a strap-on could cause a bond. Mary, well, she's still married. True, she was fired as well, but no one anticipated her facing any significant consequences. Her husband seemed entirely submissive to her whims. She'd easily find another job, and life would continue for her. Life is not always fair. In fact, it is. Harold wasn't the submissive loser everyone believed. Once he gathered evidence, he got furious. I thought I had a tough 6. A strap-on could cause a bond. Mary is still married, and while she was fired, no one anticipated any significant consequences for her. Her husband seemed entirely submissive to her. She'd easily find another job, and life would continue. Life isn't always fair. Harold wasn't the submissive loser everyone believed. Once he gathered evidence, he got furious. I thought I had a tough 6 months, but compared to hers, it was a walk in the park. Deciding he had punished her adequately, he served her with divorce papers while putting Mary through hell. He quietly liquidated all their assets and safeguarded them. He gave her the house after refinancing it and taking all the equity. Then, he vanished. She lost the house and all the money disappeared. She found another job, but for half the salary she used to earn. She also has a tarnished reputation, but is not dating presently. After a period of several months, Jack decided to end the marriage. He served her with divorce papers, and during this process, he discreetly liquidated all their assets, ensuring that she would have no financial stake in the marriage. He then refinanced the house, retaining the equity, and she lost both the house and the majority of her financial assets. She found a new job, but it was for half the salary she previously earned. Her reputation has been tarnished, and she is currently not dating anyone. She is scheduled to receive another month of antibiotics. You might be wondering why I continue to endure this or laughing at my deserved fate. If you are upset because Jack did not leave me stranded, I am grateful to God every day. I endure it because I cannot imagine life without the love of my life. Yes, Jack disciplines and humiliates me, but he still loves me. He has other women, but he never leaves me. I can leave at any time. I am currently undergoing a course of antibiotics, the necessity of which I am sure you can appreciate. If you are concerned about my well-being, I assure you that I am grateful for the support I receive. I am grateful for the opportunity to be with my significant other, even if he does subject me to humiliation. He has other relationships, but he always comes back to me. I have the option to leave at any time. Jack has shown me documents related to a potential divorce, in which he would be the primary caretaker. I have declined this offer. Jack is an excellent father, lover, and husband. I do not require anything else. I became so focused on the idea of women's marriage that I lost sight of what truly matters. Instead of being content in an equal relationship, I became subservient to my husband. This was not my intention, but I am content.